Good morning. I'm going to put my gloves on here. And sometimes I do videos that are in response to comments I get. This could go either way. This could either like open you up to like new ideas or new like philosophies on the relationship between bows and people, or I'll just leave it at that. It might anger you because you're saying what I'm saying is dangerous, and it just tears apart like what we know about bows and the relationship between bows and people. Or else it might be like, I'm gonna go watch something done by Stuart Ashens, which I encourage you to do. I'm going to try to tackle this very difficult video, this very difficult concept in a certain way, and I hope it's effective. Okay. Cherokee longbows. Maybe 15 years ago, a fellow had me do a Cherokee longbow, one of the war bows, because they had generally, because there's always exceptions, because people are involved, a longer war bow, which somewhat mimicked like what you would think of an English war bow, because they were used in similar ways, artillery bows, and they're hunting bows. He wanted a war bow. And I did it in black locust, because the prototypical Cherokee longbow, if you were to say, look at this bow, what is it? It's made out of black locust. It's a long flat bow. It has a high draw weight. It's Cherokee longbow / war bow. I have to believe, because individuals were involved, that some of them were made out of other woods. They weren't just all made out of black locust. However, if you wanted to do a reproduction that spoke to you that this was a Cherokee longbow / war bow, this is it, because it had this certain tips which have been noted as far as that style. It's made out of black locust, which is noted for that style, although there was a huge range, I believe, because individuals were involved. And so you have a Cherokee, which refers to a certain group of people. The people within that group varied a little bit. So I could have probably gotten away with making another wood, or using another wood. English longbows, going back 15 years or so ago, I used to catch so much flack, get so much anger directed towards me in forums, and that's why I don't do forums anymore. I mean, it was heresy. Because of course, there were the bows found on the Mary Rose, Henry's flagship, but that does not represent the entire range of bows used by the English in, the Middle Ages. Let's just throw that out there. There were bows made out of white ash. There were bows made out of elm that were used in that place over time. They weren't just all yew. They weren't just all, say, Italian or Spanish yew, or maybe even English yew. I'm going to throw that out there, because you have the prototypical bow. This is what they looked like. They were heavy, 150 million pound draw weight, made out of yew. That would be the prototypical bow, although if it was made out of a different wood, I contended back then they were wider and thinner, and some of them were flat bows, and that caused wrinkles. Nowadays, you can throw that out there and you don't cause as much anger, because people have loosened up a little bit, and they have understood that yes, the qualities, engineering qualities of the wood dictate to many, in many degrees, the kind of bow you shall make. Now, I believe it was in the last Primitive Archer magazine, or the one before this one that's out right now, there was a fellow that did an article on short bows. Haha. And so things have opened up. People have gotten a little looser. Yes, you have the prototypical bows, but you also have the individuals out there. In a lot of ways, I can admit that I like to cause troubles. I like to stir things up and get people to thinking. Same way with the Molargay bed bows and the whole Molargay bed Holmegard issue. You find a relic in a place that represents a certain time, and you can say this is the prototypical. This bow represents it. I can make a reproduction following those lines, and that represents that certain bow. But then you start breaking out of that box and say that maybe that bow style went beyond that place, went beyond that time. And the issue that you have as far as angering some people is you just threw off their whole concept of this is that bow, it existed only during that time, and you just destroyed history. You destroyed our base of knowledge, because now we don't have any firm footing to be on. This is one of those philosophical points in this video that I want to get you to think about, is that does that indeed destroy our view of history? Does that indeed destroy our understanding of bows and the historical aspect of bows if we take a deep breath and understand that maybe those bows translated, to other areas and other times? Maybe, in fact, there are two things at work here. There are the bows. We worship these bows. We want to place this bow at that place and that time. But we may be forgetting the people, the inventiveness, the creativity, the ability to adapt. And so we have to balance our understanding of the importance of remaining historically accurate for those bow types, but we should not overlook the adaptability and the creativity of people to use things. Now I'm going to get into a whole other area. And the response is really, because yes, I do board bows, but I also do stave bows. And I did a video on Northern Plains horsebow. And in a general view of things, this bow represents more of the form. It was I believe a 5-bend bow. It had the handle that bent back, and then the deflex tips, and then it could have even been a recurve. And a person took issue with me because it was a board bow. Northern Plains. What does that exactly mean? Well, it was an area of North America that were the Great Plains in the north. The Dakotas, probably part of Wyoming. Don't want to get too specific in this, but it was like the horse people of the Great Plains. Let's talk about time. What does that mean? Well, horses arrived in the continental U.S. in the 1500s. They were here during, I believe, the Pleistocene, but then they disappeared. Camels used to live in North America. So we get this whole wide range of time. But horses, given to North America by the Spanish, they arrived in the continental U.S. in the early 1500s. And before then, there were no Northern Plains horse people because the horses weren't here before then. And in fact, I'm not going to say all, but many of the tribes that you would think of that represented the Northern Plains horse people lived in the Great Lakes region. They were not horse people. They did not live in the Great Plains. They lived in the Great Lakes area. And so there's that movement. They moved into there before the people of European descent started, taking over, colonizing, uprooting, changing. Video's not about that. It's not about the philosophy of one people destroying another people. It's important. I don't want to lessen that, but this is mostly about bows here. And so, let's say that I take this out, a typical bow wing, sinew back, Osage orange, made from a stave, not a board. And suppose I said that this was a Northern Plains horse bow. And you would say, well, yeah, it's a gull wing. It's relatively short. It's about 50 inches, 48 inches or something like that, made of Osage orange. If I was talking about the 1800s, maybe 1700s, not going to get specific, this is more in a general term here, because I'm not really too sure when Osage orange arrived to the northern plains, because it didn't grow there. Trade routes were established. This stuff grew in the Missouri Valley, far, far away. This would be just as inaccurate as a say 1600s era northern plains horsebow as a board bow would be, because this wood did not exist there. It wasn't up there. The trade routes, let's say just before the trade routes were established, this would not be a northern plains horsebow because the wood wasn't there to do this. The Osage orange. This little doohickey white ash sinew backed would be more accurate than this for, say, a northern plains horsebow in the early stages before Osage orange arrived. It's a little on the long side. I'm going to say it kind of represents. I'm not going to say it is. It represents. It is a certain form. This is an oak one. Choke cherry, the oaks, other woods were available at that time. And yes, they were made out of saplings. They were made out of split staves. Obviously, you know, when I do this board bow thing, I'm not saying that all the bows were like this. You know, it's possible. It's possible. I like to shake things up and just say it's possible. Now this, 46 inches, a board bow, or is it? No, this is made out of hop hornbeam. But let's say that this is oak. Let's say that this is an oak gull wing bow, 46 inches long, and I'm going to call it a northern plains horsebow. I could catch flack, just like I used to catch flack for saying that English longbows could have been wider and flatter if they weren't made out of yew. Now let's think about this. The comment was very reasonable. The fellow said that northern plains horsebows were made out of, my mouth is frozen, I'm not used to this, were made out of saplings. They were made out of split staves because lumber yards didn't exist back then. Well, I'm not going to say that lumber yards in stores that sold lumber didn't follow settlers, and in that period overlapped, you know, the northern plains horse people's, you know, apex. But I will say, thinking about the adaptability and the cleverness of people, and thinking that nowadays modern bow makers can make and do make bows out of white ash shovel handles, that is it out of the realm of possibility. Not saying that it's the prototypical bow, but just saying it's possible. Is it possible that the native peoples of that region made board bows? What is a board? You know, it was, tree was cut down, it was split. In a lot of cases, you know, barrel staves and wagon parts, they were rived, they were split. They weren't just sawed randomly, indiscriminately through the growth rings of the trees and then air dried. You know, a lot of it was white oak, which is a very nice bow wood. Think about it. Group of people, they procure a piece of wood, pieces of wood, from either wagon parts or barrel staves, big barrels. You know, this would be a big barrel, but barrels were the length of bows, the staves were, to then further split that beautiful white oak wood that was air dried and create bows from it. I'm going to back up a little bit here. And of course, I'm not saying they did this with 100% certainty. I'm not going to say that all of them were made out of dimensional wood, which could have been dimensional from a barrel stave or wagon parts or whatever parts or shovel handles. But I'm saying that people are smart, people are clever, people use things that they have at hand. And I'm just going to say it's possible. And think about it, it's possible. If you were a native person Great Plains and you came upon barrel staves, a barrel, you came upon shovel handles, you came up, which were started by splitting and not by just indiscriminately sawing through growth rings and knots. You came upon wagon parts, which had to be flexible, just like boat parts did. Say the Vikings, which I could go off into Viking bows, take oak trees and saw that lumber, or did they split them following the growth rings, which made nice flexible boards for boats? That could have been a possible source of bow wood. Okay, let's bring this to a close. Gull wing bows. I'm not going to say that all Northern Plains or all plain style bows were gull wings. They weren't. I'm sure that there were some that were D-bows. I'm sure that there were some that were D-bows that were somewhat recurved. And this, I'm going to grab one that broke in the center when I was steaming it. It's a little wider, it's a little paddly bow shaped, but it represents this shape of a museum specimen bow that I saw. The length is correct, it's just the width that's a little odd. The shape when you're looking at it is correct. It was actually, yeah, look at this poor little thing. It wasn't shaped like a gull wing, it was shaped like this. That bow was like a deflex reflex design. It looked just like this. The handle was deflexed and then the tips recurved and it was shaped like this. And this was, I'm not sure if it was Dakota or one of the Lakotas, but it was from that area, the Dakotas, and it was bent back and then it had recurved handles, and it was a Northern Plains horse bow, so they weren't all gull wing. There is never all. If you wanted, again, to have a prototypical bow, you would follow patterns, specific patterns. But if you wanted to jump and then say that, like, there was a wide range of bow styles used in any one place at any one time, then you start throwing yourself off a little bit. This thing is a little bit not usable, so I'm going to add it to my fire. This is a bow fire. Along with this tip. There we go. Return to nature. There's one last thing I think I wanted to say, but I'm not too sure what it was. Oh, I'm going to bring this out again. And in keeping with shaking things up, I don't want to get any like dirt on the handle. The white cedar. And of course, you know, I'm not saying that white cedar was used, you know, over a broad period of time and a broad period of places, and a lot of bows were made out of it. But I like to experiment, shake things up, see if these things can work. And this one does. You can sight down it and you see it still has reflex. I've been playing this for a while, and it's white cedar and it's not damaged after use. It's a beautiful little bow. Not saying that white cedar was used a lot. This is just like what I've been talking about. Is I like to shake things up and see what can you do if you have a certain thing you don't have access to, like the prime things. What can you do with the materials using creativity, the willingness to experiment and go off on a limb. And with that, I guess I'm going to close. I'm going to continue down here burning broken bows, which is a nice thing to do. Can't say as I'm really enjoying the first snowfall. Shock. Interesting story. Interesting story. Now, talking with my native friends here, the Odawa, I talk about certain things, talk about certain philosophies, talk about the way things are. Not going to like let the cat out of the bag too much, but there's a certain power to the seasonality of things. It's like when one season then crashes into another, it's considered to be a pretty active time of the year. And this is kind of interesting. It's like, so my wife and I, you know, it's night, sleeping and stuff like that. She's wide awake. I'm sleeping, having nightmares. Could be from a variety of things. And so she's looking out the window and seeing like lights in the tree line, because when we're looking out the bedroom window, we go past the parking lot, there's the wood line, and then the trail beyond that. And she's seeing lights on the trail. At the same time, I'm having nightmares of people circling the preserve, because the trail is a big circle. I'm having nightmares of groups of people running the trails with flashlights on their head. At the same time, she's looking out and seeing, while she's awake, like what she thinks are lights beyond the tree line. And I thought that was interesting. Little spooky story for you. And with that, now I'm going to close and continue on my way. I've got a birch bark frame and a picture to glue onto a board to put in that frame. Got some bows I need to finish up and move out. Set some stone points, and the tips of arrows with pitch and then sinew them, which is another thing. You know, the transformation from using stone points to then punching out and shaping points out of iron from found materials, pots and what have you, wagon hoops maybe, who knows. Now with that, I'm going to say adieu. Enjoy this November day. I guess it's November, like 13th or something like that, or 11th or 10th. Who knows? I just know it's winter. See you later.